see you guys in the dark.
This is a story about an ex-friend of mine that I tried to help through his terrifying obsession with a girl. To no avail, though. I've always been the type to observe everything from a safe distance. Seldom am I ever brought into trauma, but people come to me for advice, a lot. I've given my best and most sound counseling to friends, but this particular guy I knew was beyond any form of help. The guy, we'll call him Andy, made no point to cover up his psycho, from mumbling out loud to himself in public, to being physically harmful. Andy was quite the basket case. I started out knowing very little about him because I kept to myself, and come gym class, when we walked the track, I'd have my headphones in most of the time. When a girl began walking around the track with him, and conversing with him, I instantly noticed, as I would overhear them talking about some metal bands I coincidentally enjoyed. I'm not really sure how I wound up in this group, but maybe one of them made a move to hang out with me, possibly my hilarious gay friend, Mac. This group consisted of Andy the psycho, Krista, Mac, and two other girls apart from myself. We had our subgroups. Krista and the other two girls were heavily into anime, while Mac and I would get into deep conversations about the mysteries of life. Andy, on the other hand, mostly sat and listened to Krista. He had an obvious fixation on her, and by the middle of the school year, everyone, including Krista, knew how desperate he was for her. Krista stated that she did not date, as her father was very protective, and to be honest, she kind of gave off a lesbian vibe. Anyway, despite her efforts to pull away from him, Andy was practically on top of her, forcing hugs she awkwardly yanked away from, and making it known that he wanted her. On one occasion, she'd block his number after realizing it was a mistake to give it to him. He managed to steal her phone and unblock his number, and upon confrontation, he had admitted to unblocking his twin brother's number in her phone. Andy absolutely hated his twin and never wanted to be compared to him, which would be expected as his brother was the charismatic one with lots of friends. Yet, Andy said on multiple occasions he'd wish his brother was dead, and joked about the joyful thought of killing him. I didn't judge harshly at first, but my friend Mac did. He would let Andy know what a creep he was. One time Krista and Andy were talking as he'd taken a seat right beside her. He was telling her not to talk to his brother, and somewhere in this conversation, right in the school library, he slapped her for not listening to him. I'll never forget the fear and anger on her face, and from then on, even after his awkward apology, Krista let him know that he should stay away from her. Unfortunately, he'd taken to talking to me all along, as I've always been a soundboard whether I cared to be or not. Every day on the bus, it was Krista, Krista, Krista. Some days he'd just chant her name and get lost in his own thoughts of her. I would try to drop subtle hints that she's not interested, or at the very least to treat her normal and give her some space. Apart from his desire for Krista, he was the most desperate guy that I have ever met. He would ask out every girl that he would meet, and spoke to for about a day. He would message me on Facebook about how he needed a girlfriend, and luckily I'd been in a relationship for 4 years by then, and he knew that he couldn't have me. That still didn't stop him from hitting on me in so many ways. I didn't realize it at first, which included a near proposal. He'd once just typed my name, and then I asked him what was up. He simply said that you're beautiful, but you look exactly like someone from my past, and it makes me sad remembering her every time that I look at you. I miss her so much. He definitely had a knack for making people uncomfortable, and some days I couldn't help but ignore him. Krista evaded him till high school graduation, but Andy's obsession only seemed to intensify. I genuinely thought that he would be helped, and I could get through to him while keeping my own distance, but he set off too many alarms. Firstly, he was training for some entry into a military boot camp of some sort, and was discharged for reasons in relation to his mental state, though he couldn't get too far into it. Secondly, every day he would write me at weird times early in the morning to tell me, "Help, I can't stop thinking of her. I'm in love with her." This was clearly not true, as he's made moves on me and other girls in the time that he's known her. He made many implications that he would self-harm to get her off of his mind, but nothing worked. He'd also somehow convinced himself that she wanted him and would frequent the grocery store she went to just to say hi to her, though she just kept her own head down and ignored him. One morning, as I was browsing social media, he messaged me the usual. I need her. I love her. Help me. I'm going crazy. I tried to help him analyze his feelings and come to his senses that he was fine and to let her be. I thought, if he's hitting on other girls but claiming to love her, let's see what he says to this. I typed out, "Tell me, what do you truly love about her?" I cannot believe what he sent me next. It was the most ridiculous and degrading message that I've ever read from somebody. She has such small breasts. I love that about her. I dream of taking her virginity, and I don't think that she'd mind how small I am, if you know what I mean. I felt like I just read some psycho's personal diary. Truthfully, this girl was tiny. She was 18 years old, and not even 100 pounds, which made me fear that he would prey on her. He was very short, but she appeared vulnerable and smaller than him. I was on the last straw of playing therapist for this guy, who clearly had no goddamn idea he was scaring this little girl. Up to the last time that we spoke, the worst thing he'd request of me was to get a hold of Krista's new number somehow for him, and attempt to lure her in to see him again. He grew frustrated with my decline, and pleaded with me to help him obtain her new address. Needless to say, the last night that we spoke, I wished him well and told him that I would not assist him in terrorizing Krista. Then I blocked him. It's been about a year since then. I just hope that he got the help that he needed, and I hope for her sake he hasn't found out where she lives by now. So this happened to me last year. Keep in mind this is told in perspective of a female. I started school at the local community college. I was looking to make some new friends, since I've never really had the opportunity before. I was the weird fat kid throughout elementary and high school. College was a chance for me to reinvent myself, to actually make friends and fit in for once. It's college. No one gives a fuck if you're weird. You're all just trying to get through finals after all. Well, I had a class with this one kid. Let's call him Creep, because that's exactly what he is. Anyway, me and Creep had our ITE class together. I'd seen him every single day, but didn't talk to him very much. He stayed in his corner of the room. I sat up with my friend, an older lady. We will name her Jay. I had a TARDIS backpack. Yeah, I know. It's not bigger on the inside, by the way. Anyway, he saw this and said that it was cool. I said that was cool, and we talked a little bit about our interests as we walked to our next classroom. He was a big cosplayer, as was I, and we both enjoyed BBC programs along with anime. He seemed friendly, and I went on about my day. Things got uncomfortable after that. He started showing up everywhere that I did. Mostly he would invite himself to lunch with me and my friend S. He was disgusting. We went to lunch one day, and he ordered this burger with peppers, onions, and mayonnaise. Mayo is the bane of my existence, mind you. He didn't use napkins. The thing smelled terrible, and he wiped it on his already dubiously stained pants. It wasn't pleasant to say the least. He kept popping up places and inviting himself to lunch, and I was just beyond done with him. I have a habit of attracting some weird people, and I don't know why. I was just ready to cut and run if it came to it. Anyways, he invited himself to lunch with me again when S wasn't present. He said he had a crush on S, and I knew S went through a bad breakup. I told him to just leave her alone, but he was insistent on me seeing if she liked him. I told him no, just leave her alone. He left right after that, and I enjoyed my shitty spaghetti. Then the really freaky thing happened. I was leaving to go to my car one day and ran right into him. We talked a little bit as I was trying to get away from him, but he was insistent on talking. Eventually I tried to excuse myself, saying that I was going to my car. I'd talk to him later, though. He ended up following me. He said it was fine, and walked with me towards my car. He then proceeded to tell me a funny story about him getting drunk and punching his crazy ex in the face. Like that would totally impress me, or some stuff like that. I did what any normal person would. I looked him in the eye and said, "No, got in my car, and drove off. He screwed off and left me alone after that. That wasn't the really creepy part, though. No, I learned this a few weeks ago. He killed someone before. Apparently he got in a fight and stabbed somebody in self-defense. The circumstances were more than shady, though, but the police in my area does fuck all. The guy that creep ended up stabbing ended up dying. So yeah, I was stalked by someone who killed another person. Ain't I lucky? This is something that I've wanted to get off my chest, and I decided I wanted to get someone to tell my story. So here it goes. I was about to go into 3rd grade when I met him, so the sake of my privacy, and that I get no contact from this individual who was still free. Now to the story. I was just starting 3rd grade when I met him, David, along with his little gang of bullies. That's right, he was a fellow student. From day one, I was the target of his cruelty. And his little rascal gang. Everything happened to me, from gum in my hair to being pushed on the playground. But the worst thing is that his little group didn't even know about the molestation. It all started when he followed me into the bathroom and turned off the lights. He started touching my hair, started throwing both insults and compliments, calling my hair so soft and beautiful, to stupid kaleidoscope head. My hair was always changing colors when I was younger. It still does actually, so do my eyes. When he started to do it all over, I wanted to scream. He was just bigger than me in both size and height. Although I would later grow to be the tallest person in my class, which is one of the reasons it might have stopped, I think. Anyway, for the rest of the year he continued the molestation. Like making me touch him in his privates while we were in therapy. I almost forgot to mention that I was in therapy for my learning disability, which was realized after 1st grade. My teacher, Miss O'Neill, was oblivious to the abuse along with my actual teacher, Miss Honeydale. Bless those sweet teachers, though. I don't blame them. I actually had Miss Honeydale again in 6th grade as a teacher, but only after I transferred from another. But that's another story for another time. Again, sorry, I'm kind of getting off topic. Anyway, the abuse lasted almost until the end of 3rd grade, when David luckily moved schools for apparently different reasons that I'm not 100% sure about. Although recently I've been going online to see if I could find people from my old elementary, middle, and early high school years that I lost contact with. And unfortunately, his profile ended up crossing my path. His face is still the exact same. He has a little facial hair. Everything else is still the same. Still has the same unemotional eyes that I remember. He's still the same old slightly chubby body, with the same old stupid smile. I've never hated another person in my life more than David. He's the reason that my boyfriends couldn't touch me, or do anything intimate. I only dated in high school, and only people who were truly sweet people. But my fear of being touched and defiled again was just too great. I'd like to point out that I'm 19 years old now, and haven't had a boyfriend since my junior year of high school. Crying myself to sleep was the only thing that I could do, no matter how much I was called beautiful by my friends and family. Nothing helped. I've contemplated suicide in the past. When I was in middle school, mainly when my depression was really bad. But I'm happy to say now that I've been able to pull myself together after I broke up with my last boyfriend in my junior year. I have been probably the happiest in a very long time, and I'm continuing my path for happiness. I might even start a YouTube channel. It's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, but I want to get a little bit more of my life together. So for the 3rd grade groper David, screw you, you asshole. I really don't want to meet you again. I've never told anyone in my real life, like friends and family, but one day I will. When I feel comfortable, then I'll just talk about it here. Also, I asked a lawyer friend of mine of any legal advice about someone abusing a minor from that period of time who was also a minor, and he said in my state it would be hard to charge someone that was a minor at the time, although he's not 100% sure about it. I don't have any physical proof, unfortunately, because I never told anyone about this until now. Back when I was in the 1st year of high school, I was part of this choir where we would sing the songs of our schools requiring us to sing, like the national anthem or some church song. To be honest, I wasn't the best singer, and only joined for the benefit of skipping class. The skipping class part was great, but staying late for practice was kind of a downside, especially when it was before a big school event. One day, we had to practice in the school near the school's botanical garden, because the place we were actually practicing was being occupied by another group of people. Some of the members in the choir were kind of hesitant about practicing near the gardens, because there have been a lot of scary stories surrounding that place, and no two accounts are the same. I, on the other hand, just wanted practice to be over with. We practiced until around 8 or 9 p.m. At around this time, there would only be 2 gates that would be open if one wanted to leave the school. The college gate, which was all the way across from where we practiced, and the track and field gate, which was near, but you had to pass through the garden to get there. Me, being a lazy man, decided to take the shortest route outside the school while the rest wished me luck and went the opposite direction. I believe that any place can be creepy as long as it is dark, and the gardens were no exception. I brought my phone to call my parents. It rang once before being answered. I talked into the phone, telling my parents where to pick me up at, but no answer. I stopped the call and called again. The same thing. No answer. I called for the third, and to ask them to come pick me up, almost shouting in the phone for an answer, but still there was no answer. Finally, I had given up and decided to text message them. After walking through the garden for about a couple more minutes, I finally reached my waiting destination without incident. It was a creepy walk, but I was kind of relieved that nothing out of the ordinary had happened. My parents came after about 15 minutes of waiting, but something was off. When they stopped the car right in front of me, they got out and asked if I was okay, with a very worried expression on their faces. I said that I was fine. They told me that they got my calls. And then I asked them what did they hear. They said that they heard my voice saying "help me" over and over again. I'm 36 years old now, and when this happened, I was 17. I went to school with this weird kid who was charged with murder. I don't remember his name, but I'll just call him John. John and I had art class together, and this was the type of high school that had a mounted TV in every single classroom. Every day at noon, my art teacher would have the TV on for the news that comes on. John was a normal kid, or so we thought. He was a bit of a bully, but he never bullied me. He did in fact break a classmate's arm. From what I heard, he pushed him down on the floor with such force that John managed to break the other kid's arm. John got suspended for 7 days or so, but he wouldn't be back at school. During his suspension, John killed his mother. I remember my day started just as a normal day. When I had gotten to art class, my art teacher had put on the 12 o'clock news right in the middle of the news broadcast. John's face had popped up. The guy reporting the story said John had killed his mother. The entire class was dead silent. All of this was being aired. Apparently John killed his mom with the bar of a dumbbell set. He left her body in her room and turned on the AC full blast. One of his friends must have discovered her body because he had some friends over for a party. I don't really know what his prison sentence was, or if his prison sentence has been served. I don't know if he's a free man, or if he happens to still be in prison. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.